Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're plunging into something that might sound a bit technical on the surface, but it's really critical for understanding digital security. We're talking about the surprising dangers of unmanaged privileged access. Think of these privileged accounts. Well, they're like the master keys to an organization's most important systems, right?
Sure.
Our source material for this is an incredibly insightful document. It's titled How Attackers Exploit Weak Privileged Access. And it lays out really clearly how mismanaging these credentials create security risks that attackers just love to exploit. So our mission today: unpack these hidden dangers, understand exactly how the bad actors leverage them, and then crucially, look at the practical solutions. What does this all mean for you? Whether you're prepping for a meeting, maybe catching up on the field, or you're just, intensely curious, you're about to get a shortcut to being really well informed on something that can make the difference between a major breach and staying secure. Okay, let's get into it. Why are these seemingly small details? Why are they so critical?
Yeah, what really struck me from the source was how these, seemingly minor oversights, they aren't just weak spots. They often act as the very first domino to fall in a whole chain reaction. The report highlights that a huge majority, something like 80% of major breaches, trace back to compromised credentials and privileged accounts. They're the absolute gold standard for attackers. It's kind of the silent killer in digital security. It lets attackers get that initial foothold, which can then snowball into catastrophic vulnerabilities. We're talking security blind spots, attackers stealing more credentials, moving laterally through networks, and ultimately launching things like devastating ransomware attacks or, massive data breaches.
Wow, 80%. That's a staggering statistic, a really powerful way to start. So let's kick off with something that might seem like a simple mistake, but it's a hacker's best friend. Hard-coded credentials. What exactly are we talking about here?
Right. We mean passwords, API keys, things like that, embedded directly into, say, scripts, application code, configuration files, often just sitting there in plain text. You might find them in code repositories, maybe even system logs sometimes.
Okay, but why does this happen? It seems like such a basic thing to avoid.
That's a great question. And the report points out it's usually not malicious. It's often about convenience, a shortcut during development maybe. Developers are trying to move fast, get things working.
Technical debt, basically.
Exactly. It's that technical debt accumulating because maybe security wasn't the top priority at that exact moment. But this convenience creates this persistent backdoor.
Okay, so it's out there. How do attackers actually find and exploit this?
Well, there are tools specifically for this. Code scanning tools, things that trawl public repositories like GitHub for leaks. Even search engines like Shodan can find misconfigured systems that might expose these kinds of files. They can automatically detect these exposed credentials.
So it's also automated for them.
Pretty much. And once they find one, an attacker gets instant, often unfettered access to critical systems. They bypass a lot of the traditional security layers in, one go. The cost for them to get in drops dramatically.
Anyway, so what's the fix? How do organizations stop leaving these keys under the digital doormat?
Yeah, it's about making it much harder and more expensive for the attackers. The source lays out 3 key steps. First, secrets need to be stored securely. Use a dedicated secrets vault like a digital Fort Knox, not plain text files.
Okay.
Second, implement automated password rotation. Change those credentials frequently, so even if one gets exposed somehow, it quickly becomes useless.
Makes sense.
And third, regularly scan your repositories, your logs, everything, specifically looking for any credentials that might have slipped through. Proactive hunting.
Proactive hunting, I like that. Okay, so that covers the danger of leaving a single key out. But what about when multiple people are all using the same key with no way to tell who used it when? That brings us to the next big issue. Shared accounts, the generic admin login or maybe DBA.
Ah, yes, shared accounts. The source really highlights the core problem here, a complete breakdown of accountability. When lots of people use the same login, you simply can't trace specific actions back to a specific person. It's impossible.
Right. So what happens when an attacker gets hold of one of these shared logins?
Well, they can just blend in. They look like any other legitimate user using that account. It makes detecting malicious activity incredibly difficult. Was it Jane from IT, or was it the attacker?
It's like that analogy you mentioned, a dozen people with the same house key. If something goes missing.
Exactly. Who do you point the finger at? There's no clear trail. It effectively creates this smokescreen for bad actors, whether they're external attackers or even potentially an insider threat.
That anonymity must be incredibly attractive to someone trying to do harm. So how do organizations fight back against this? How do you bring back accountability?
The recommendations are pretty direct. First and foremost, use individual privileged accounts for each user whenever possible. That's foundational.
One person, one key.
Precisely. Then, implement something called Privileged Session Management, or PSM. This tech allows for dedicated tracking, sometimes even video recording, of exactly what happens during each privileged session. You get a full audit trail.
Okay, video recording, that's serious auditing.
It can be, yeah. Also, using check-in processes for credentials, so only one person holds the key at any given time, and of course, multi-factor authentication, MFA. Adding that extra layer, something you have like a phone app, makes it much harder, even if a password is compromised.
MFA seems crucial everywhere these days. Okay, so we've gone from single exposed keys to shared keys. Now, what about keys that just open way too many doors? Let's talk about overprivileged users. This is when someone has way more access rights than they actually need for their job, right? Like
Right.
A developer with full admin rights in production.
Exactly that scenario. And a really critical part of this problem, as the source points out, is privilege creep. These excessive privileges often get granted for a temporary reason, maybe a specific project.
And then never get taken away.
Right, even after the project ends, or the person changes roles, or even leaves the company entirely sometimes. Those extra rights just linger.
So why is that specific situation so dangerous? What's the real risk?
The danger lies in massively increasing the organization's attack surface. If an attacker compromises a relatively low-level account, maybe through phishing or malware, but that account happens to be overprivileged, the attacker can then potentially perform a privilege escalation attack. They can use those excessive rights to gain even more control, maybe even full administrative access, that sort of God mode, over systems.
So it becomes a stepping stone.
A very effective one. It dramatically widens the blast radius of an attack, meaning how much damage an attacker can do once they're in. It's like, giving everyone in the building a master key, even folks who only need to get into the mailroom.
And you mentioned earlier this isn't usually malicious on the employee's part.
No, generally not. It's often just, again, convenience or maybe a lack of a systematic process for reviewing who has access to what. It's an oversight, but a critical one.
So it's more about that passive vulnerability being there, waiting to be exploited. How do organizations fix this? How do they ensure people only have the keys they absolutely need and only when they need them?
The fundamental principle here is least privilege access LPA. Only grant the absolute minimum permissions required for someone to do their job. No more.
Minimum necessary.
Right. And building on that is just-in-time access, or JIT. This is becoming really important. Instead of having privileges all the time, standing privileges, JIT grants access temporarily on demand.
So only for the specific task or a set time period.
Exactly. The access expires automatically. It drastically reduces the window of opportunity for attackers. And maybe the most critical part, practically speaking, is regular reviews. Organizations need processes to periodically check and remove unnecessary privileges. It has to be ongoing.
An ongoing hygiene process, not just a one-off setup. Okay. That brings us to our final point in this deep dive. What happens when organizations are essentially flying blind? The danger of not monitoring any of this. We're talking about situations where there's no logging of privileged account activity, no real-time monitoring, maybe no alerts for suspicious logins or attempts to escalate privileges.
Yeah, and the implications here are really severe because without monitoring, attackers can operate almost invisibly. The source makes it clear they can gain control of privileged accounts, use them for things like credential stuffing attacks, move laterally across the network.
Exploring and expanding.
Exactly, finding more valuable systems, maybe exfiltrating data, stealing sensitive information. And all of this can go completely unnoticed, sometimes for months, even longer.
Like that burglar analogy you used earlier. The alarm's off, cameras aren't recording, nobody's watching.
Precisely. By the time the damage is discovered, perhaps through an external notification or when systems start failing, it's often far too late. The breach has happened, the data is gone.
That total lack of visibility, it really underscores why monitoring is so vital. So, what are the must-haves? How do organizations shine a light on these hidden activities?
Well, it's about building that observation capability. Enabling privileged session monitoring, like we touched on before, is key. That ability to record sessions gives incredible forensic detail if something does go wrong. Beyond just recording, you need real-time alerts. Setting up alerts for any unusual or anomalous activity, things like a privileged account logging in from a strange location or at an odd time, or trying to access systems it normally doesn't touch.
Triggering alarms for suspicious behavior.
Exactly. And finally, performing regular, thorough audits of all the privileged access logs. You need to actually look at the data being collected. It's about having the visibility, the tracking, and the ability to react quickly when something looks off with those master keys.
Okay, so let's try and bring this all together. We've covered quite a bit. We've seen how these different weaknesses, the hard-coded credentials, the shared accounts, the overprivileged users, and then this critical lack of monitoring, how they all combine. They create these huge security blind spots, almost like laying out a welcome mat for attackers.
Absolutely. And the key takeaways from the source material are really consistent and clear on this. Privileged accounts demand strict control. They need continuous monitoring. They need regular rotation or elimination of standing access. Attackers actively look for and thrive on weak privilege management because, well, it makes their job easier. It lowers their costs and boosts their success rate.
So don't give them an easy way in.
Precisely. Automating secrets management, getting rid of those always-on privileges, using things like JIT, establishing robust auditing. These aren't just nice-to-haves, they're fundamental. They're non-negotiable steps if you want to significantly reduce risk and build genuine digital resilience.
And for you, the listener, the core message here, I think, is that understanding these specific vulnerabilities, it's not just about the techie details. It's really your shortcut to appreciating why strong privileged access management, or PM, isn't just some IT checklist item. It's foundational to an organization's entire security posture, its operational stability, and frankly, its reputation.
Yeah, that's well put. Knowledge is really only valuable when you understand it and can see how it applies. And the insights from today, they just reinforce that in cybersecurity, being proactive, having these robust controls. It isn't just best practice anymore. It's absolutely essential for survival, for trust, for integrity in the long run.
So as you reflect on what we've unpacked today, here's something to maybe mull over. Beyond just stopping a breach, what does truly smart, thoughtful access management actually enable for an organization? Think about things like innovation, maybe agility, its overall ability to protect its most valuable assets, its data, its people, in a threat landscape that's constantly changing. Definitely something to think about until our next deep dive.